I had recently announced something that we'd been working almost a year on,
I
like
think over a year.
preparing and making sure like everything was formalized and yada yada, which is that I have my own scholarship under my name at Carleton University, which is where I went to school for my bachelor's and my master's.
Yeah, so there is, if you are currently
Yeah.
a student at Carleton University in any undergraduate program, applications are open until November 15th.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's the Christine Rotenberg Scholarship for Academic and Creative Pursuits.
Yeah.
Or Creative and Academic Pursuits. Maybe I mixed up the order. I don't know.
We thought about calling it like Simply or Nailogical or something, but then I don't know. It just felt weird because what if that doesn't exist forever, but Christine Rotenberg it will exist forever? Do you know what I mean? I don't know.
Sure.
It was kind of like, I don't know what to call it, but yeah, this is what we
I
decided.
thought you should call it Get You a Girl Who Can Do Both podcast.
Well,
But
it's not just
I
for
don't want to
girls.
limit it just to okay.
Exactly.
But anyway, it's a scholarship.
A real scholarship,
Yeah.
not a tuition giveaway that I did on YouTube.
Yeah, and people will know. We'll talk about the history of you having given away tuition in a more informal basis. But for a while now, we have been looking into how to do this in a more formal way. So just to sort of wrap, like if you are a Carleton student, you can apply to it now. We'll leave a link down below. And the purpose of the scholarship is there's an application, and basically it wants to reward people who show a commitment both to their studies, but also have a sort of creative or artistic interest that is distinct from what they're going to school for. And, you know, because we find that really inspiring when we see people who do that. And we think you have inspired a lot of people by sort of
And I also think
embodying
I
that.
realized the difficulty in continuing your passions or whatever your creative interests are outside of school, because school takes a lot of time, takes money to attend school. So just thinking back to like my history when I was doing my master's, when I started nail art, like it would be easier for people to potentially continue doing whatever it is they're creatively interested in if they had a scholarship like this that was designed for people like this who are serious about their school, but then also have this thing completely independent of school that they like to creatively explore, that takes time, and sometimes it takes money to fund your creative passions. So
Yeah, so we're very excited to see. The interesting thing about doing a scholarship formally like this through university is we actually don't know who is
Yeah.
applying for it and who will win it. We are not in a position to pick the winners because that would be a
maybe we
conflict.
should explain. Well, first let's explain what the scholarship is, like, or who gets it.
I think we just
Well, no, but there's two recipients
Okay.
every year
yes.
for the rest of time, right? There is actually a complicated explanation for how scholarships work. Ben, do you
Okay.
want to explain it?
Yeah, okay, we could talk about how
Like,
okay.
what does this actually mean? What did I donate? What does this mean?
So you okay. So like over a year ago, we were looking into how to do the scholarship in a more formal way, because what you've done the last 3 years or so, 4 years, was just sort of through your YouTube channel, you have given people cash that is the equivalent of their tuition as part of this.
Well, I had asked them for their like proof of enrollment and the invoice, so it's not like I was just
Yes,
yeah.
but we are technically not administering. We were not administering a scholarship
correct.
technically.
Yes.
We were just giving people a cash prize equivalent to that. There were some like accounting things to consider there. Anyway, we realized that wasn't really a tenable situation moving forward, and you had expressed an interest in wanting to do something that is a little more permanent, right? So for a while, we had been talking to some nonprofit organizations with the idea of making a scholarship that would be open to people across Canada at different institutions. But the problem we ran into there, and why that ultimately didn't work, is that those organizations, they need to be paid to run a scholarship, and they want to take a fee per the number of people applying to the scholarship. And as helpful and as amazing as some of those groups are, it just wasn't realistic for us, knowing how many people had applied for the scholarships that you had run in the past. we couldn't be paying these administrative fees for the number of applications because we would have been paying more in fees for the people to run the scholarship than we would have actually even been giving away to students.
Yeah, so that was not in the best interest of students ultimately. And it's really because if we were to launch this, we know that there would be a high number of applicants just because of my social media presence. But if like some random like big corporate company has a scholarship, like they don't have as many applicants because there isn't that like social awareness that people are like, oh, I'm really inspired by this public figure, so I'm going to apply.
Yeah,
so
so you
that's
see,
why
like,
it works for big corporations potentially,
Exactly.
but it did not work for us. And I know how many people, or I can guess how many people would apply, because if I look back to my annual informal tuition giveaways, one year there was more than 10,000 people who applied. And I understand the burden of looking through that. I'm not like, I understand why
Sure.
this organization was going to charge per application. But if they charge a certain fee and there's 10,000 applications, that is more money to just look through applications than it is left to give to students.
Yes. So we ultimately came to the conclusion that we had to work with a specific institution, our post-secondary institution, and it made sense for that to be where you
To be
got your
Carleton,
education,
yeah.
at Carleton here in Ottawa. So we started talking to them months and months ago. This happened back in November or December of last year is when we actually
Yeah, a year ago.
figured this out. Yeah, it's been about a year. So what you do is it's called an endowed fund. Basically, if you give a bunch of money to a university, like a large amount, what they do is they take that money and add it to their portfolio. They take that money, they invest it, and then as the scholarship, they give out every year like 4% or whatever the rate is at that time, which is basically just what amount of money you can make on a big pile of money that you have invested in some sort of endowment fund or something.
So there's like strategic investment that goes into administering scholarships too, because it's not like I will pay $3,000 times 2 every year to a student. We gave the university up front $100,000,
Yeah.
which they, through some initiative, did like a matching thing. They matched 50
They
grand.
matched half of it, yeah.
So there was in total $150,000 that went into my scholarship fund. They will take, at least for the first year, it's 2 times $3,000 awards for 2 different students for a total of $6,000, and do that every year
Yeah.
for the rest of time. However, that the amount administered could grow over time as more money and interest occurs, or we could choose to change to make it 3 recipients instead of 2, or we can add more money to the fund
Exactly.
in the future.
There's a lot of flexibility to sort of change it, but I think the whole point was you wanted this to be something that wasn't just dependent on you having cash to give out to people one year.
Yeah.
The whole point is this is permanent.
This
so
makes it permanent,
They're able
yeah.
to give out this prize while maintaining the sort of principal balance so it can always exist as long as the university exists.
Yeah, so even though they're only giving out $6,000 this year, they invest the other 94, oh no, more than that, plus $50,000. So that just gets invested and it just accrues interest, which are like
exactly.
yeah, which is good. So
Yeah, so that is in a
that's
nutshell
how that works. It's
how
a
that
little more
happened.
complicated than my usual annual things. I guess the process actually is more complicated too for selecting a winner, but we're actually removed from it on account of impartiality and transparency.
Yes.
We can't be choosing the winners when you work with a major institution like this, because hypothetically, what if we just like chose our friends, you know? That's what they want to avoid. So I understand that.
Yeah, and it's part of the reason to move away from the informal way we were doing it before, because even though we knew we were doing things in an ethical way, it just this really gives it legitimacy in a way, and it really will be something that survives long after people are watching your stuff online. This will still exist.
Yeah, so it will ultimately be like a committee of people who work at the university who do this all the time, or for other awards too. Like, I'm not the only scholarship at my university.
Yeah, and there
So-
was an option of limiting it to like a specific program at the university or something like that, but ultimately you
I
didn't make
want
that
to.
decision,
Because
right?
it's not about the the particular program of interest. Like I did criminology and sociology, but I didn't want to limit it to people for that reason. I just said anyone in undergrad, and their rules is that you have to be a full-time undergrad student in order to apply for any of these scholarships. But yeah, that we kind of have to follow along with partly what Carleton's rules are for administering and applying for scholarships, but they let us guide a lot of the application questions because it's about the spirit of the award and doing something creative outside of your academic interests, which is like new and different. And I'm really excited that the university was like open to this idea because I don't think there's ever been an award quite like worded this way.
Yeah, it's a little unusual. The application's pretty simple for any Carleton students that might be applying to it. It's open another week, like we said. It's just basically asking people, like what is a creative interest you have that is distinct from or independent of your studies.
And this doesn't mean you have to have a lot of followers on social media.
No.
I just want to make that extremely clear.
Good point. We were really cautious and really tried to make sure they understood. We wanted to communicate to the people who will be picking the winner that this wasn't a competition to be like, who has a big social media following and is committed to school. It's not about that at all. I think it is likely that the winners will leverage the internet or social media to share their art potentially, but maybe not, right? Maybe they just do it locally.
Maybe they do it. Yeah, it's not a requirement to even have a social media following or presence. No. But just we know with this day and age with students often like to use social media to share their art.
Yeah, so I guess we're just really curious to see.
So we're going to find out the winners, I think, like after it's all done.
Yeah, so applications close in mid-November. I think winners will be notified pretty shortly after that. And then there's some sort of awards event in January, I want to say, where I think we'll probably have an opportunity to talk to the recipients, but I don't think there's any obligation.
I think
they don't
if
have
the
to.
Recipients agree, then we could potentially speak with them, but like they don't have to.
Yeah,
which is fair. Yeah.
We'll see, right? But yeah, no, it's all really exciting. But yeah, again, just really curious. Is it like someone studying law but they paint their nails, or someone
that was like
who's in math but they
you needed to pick a totally different example.
Performance artist? Like I don't know. I guess we'll see. I'm just really curious to see.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited about it, and we've thought about this for a really long time to do something more permanent.